Hey folks, Joe Morris with Answers Heaven Speaks. Just a quick apology. I guess it's kind of hard. Hopefully, some people will pick up on this and realize that they missed yesterday's show. It's kind of crazy how this whole system works with Facebook. We got the most through plays that I've ever had for a show. I've had a lot of views from maybe just a quick post or something like that without any videos, but to have people actually watch the video throughout. I'd always hoped each day we could get to that 2,000 number, and we're always very close to that, and every once in a while it goes up 2,100, 2,200. But for the longest time, we were always between 1,500 and 2,000 people that were watching this. But then on Monday, and that was even with a reach being sent out to as many as 100,000 people. But on Monday, so it must have been pretty special, because on Monday, maybe it was Marisa's channeling, it was sent out to a reach of about 80,000 people around the world. Considering the population is, what, billions, 80,000 is just a drop in the bucket. But we had over 5,200 people watch through. I mean, it just blew me away. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I'm always pushing, gosh, I hope we can get to 2,000. And then, boom, all of a sudden it's 5,000. I was like, what the heck? How did that happen? So I was really happy about that. But the reach, that means how many people's inboxes or whatever that picked this up is, like I say, it's just a drop in the bucket compared to the total populations of all the countries that we're going to. Like, it may go to the country of Hungary, but only 200 people. It'll only go to 200 people, and we'll get something like 25, 30, 40 people from that country will look at it. It'll go to Israel, but it may only be a couple hundred people, and we'll get a handful, maybe 5 or 10 people that watch it. It can go to Canada. It might be a few thousand, and we'll get maybe 100 people or so that watch it. South America is just blowing me away, because 4,000, 5,000 in reach into Venezuela, and then Argentina, Bolivia, Colombia, Uruguay, Paraguay, Suriname, Chile, Peru. It's just, and then in Central America, El Salvador, and Honduras and Nicaragua, a lot of people, and most of them young kids. The only thing I can think of is what happened on Monday was a lot of these kids that are watching probably went to their parents or their older brothers and sisters and said, hey, you might want to listen to this guy. He's got a pretty good story going on about Jesus. And they probably went, Jesus, what's that all about? But yesterday, it only went out to like 12,000 people. I mean, that may sound like a lot, and when we first were starting this, I was very happy if it went out to 12,000 people. But considering the day before it went out to 80,000 people, I don't feel the people that got to see the show on Monday were able to see it yesterday. And yesterday was a really good show, because we talked about about Peter denying Christ 3 times. He actually denied him like 5, 6 times. And then the look that Jesus gave him was just such a look of pity and just heartbreak and pity when Jesus walked out of Anas's house and was headed over to Caiaphas. And that's where we left off yesterday. Jesus was arrested. He was arrested with Judas in tow, and they supposedly Peter had whacked off an ear of the head steward of Caiaphas. Caiaphas is the head guy. He's the big head guy. Oh, by the way, let me just turn this around real quick, because yesterday I did this out on my deck, and I loved it. It was beautiful, just being out over the water and everything. But just as I was getting set up, let me turn this around. Just as I was setting up, a family of people parked themselves right below my deck, and they were just laughing and screaming and jumping around in the water and just having a good old time. I thought, oh my gosh, that's really going to be bothersome. And so I did come inside, and this is my guest house. And we've still got our little tree up. Christmas is over, New Year's is over, but down here in Mexico, they have a tradition that the real Christmas takes place something like, and I haven't figured out the date. I think it's January 6th, but it might be the 8th, it might be the 10th, it might be the 12th, or whatever. But anyway, it's a nice view here. And so we keep up the tree because the Mexican custom is to, let me turn this back around again. Let's see if that turns around. There we are. The Mexican custom is they pass out presents, not on Christmas Day, but on this, I want to say date of Magdalena, but I don't think it is. I don't think it does have anything to do with Magdalena. I think it has more to do with Mary. But doggone it, I still don't understand their customs down here. But anyway, if people put up trees, they leave them up until like January 12th. And then all the kids get one present. They get one present on like January 12th, even if they didn't get a present on Christmas. And so we're going to follow that little tradition here. And we still have our lights up outside on our deck that people can see us. And most all of you have probably taken everything down already, trees down, lights down, the whole works. But anyway, that's why we do what we do. And that's why I'm not on the deck today. I'd love to be out there, and maybe tomorrow I will be. It's really nice. It's really nice out there. But it's nice in here too as well. So anyway, Jesus was being taken from Anas. What happened was the Sanhedrin, which is made up of 70 people, but they only need, oh no, here comes my dogs. No, Poppy. No, Poppy. Let me show how much Poppy looks. Come here, Poppy. How much Poppy looks like Marissa's Lucky. Come on, Poppy, look in the camera. Come on, look in the camera. It's just that Poppy has a little bit shorter ears. But doggone it, if Marisa brings up Lucky and shows you, look at him, just look at me sideways. Poppy, you know you're not supposed to be up here, right? Poppy, don't blink. Look at him, he's just sitting there. But anyway, he's a great dog. He's smaller than Marissa's Lucky. He's got shorter ears, but he's a cute dog. And my other dog, Star, she's not around. That's the mother of Poppy. Oh, so where was I? The rule with the Sanhedrin, which is made up of 70 people, and the majority of them are Sadducees, and they're as I mentioned yesterday, they're the rich guys. They're the elites, and they don't even believe in heaven. They don't believe in angels. They believe in just the law. Just the law of Moses, all those 613 rules. So by all means, the Sadducees are basically secular rulers. They're like your everyday politicians. And the rest of the Pharisees are made up of the rest of the Sanhedrin is made up of Pharisees. And the Pharisees, which are in the minority, are made up of like clerics. They are people who, in the Jewish faith, that go to the universities. They go through all the schools. They go up to the universities, and they become well taught. They know the scriptures and all the Old Testament and the Torah. All they had at that time, they didn't have an Old Testament. They had the Torah, which was the first 5 books of the Old Testament, which was brought to them by Moses. And then the rest of what we call the Old Testament were all in scrolls. They had scrolls of Psalms and Proverbs and Daniel and Isaiah and Jeremiah and Ezekiel and Kings and Samuel and Judges and whatever all the other books were. They were in scrolls. And the Pharisees would learn this. They were very learned. So they pretty much knew the scriptures inside and out. And they believed in a heaven, and they believed in angels. Kind of believed in heaven, but weren't real sure that there was an afterlife, because the Jews believed that at that time that there would be a dispensation period. And so everybody that dies goes into a box. They go into, probably some kind of a cask. And that someday there would be a new dispensation, and all the people that were good would then be raised up and repopulate the earth. That's really what their thought was. And I'm not absolutely perfectly sure about that. Somebody who's Jewish out there will be going, no, Joe, that's not exactly the way it is. But from a Christian standpoint, and not studying the faith of the Hebrew faith, of Judaism. That's my understanding. They believed in a dispensation period, these Pharisees, and they didn't believe that you had a soul that passed on to the next dimension, to the next level, to the next place, and that this was just merely one of the many stopping points along an eternal quest to eventually become Christed, eventually become like Christ, and be there next to the Father. But the Pharisees were learned, but in this case, with the judgment of Jesus, they, gosh, I hope I don't lose my computer. Oh, no, don't do that. Okay. These Sadducees did not want the Pharisees involved because they knew that many of the Pharisees had actually come to believe that Jesus really was the Messiah, even though he wasn't going to sit on the throne of David and smite all their Syrian enemies and everybody else outside of Palestine. But anyway, so the Sadducees wanted to pack the court. They packed the court. They packed the court with only Sadducees. And they were called Sanhedrists. And the Sadducees only needed 23 of the 70 to have a hold an open court and make judgment on somebody. So Caiaphas just didn't like Jesus. He didn't like Jesus at all. In fact, even when he had met him when he was younger, he just kind of like, just kind of put up with him, knowing that he was just a kid, just a young guy, and he wasn't going to have any effect. He was just a Galilean from Nazareth, and Capernaum way up there to the north, and Jerusalem was way down in the south, and Palestine was pretty much broken up into two areas, Judea and Israel, and they were down in Judea. Is that right? I think that's right. Could be getting it wrong. I don't know. I'm not that much of a historian. But anyway, it's broken up into two parts. And is that right? I think Israel might have been to the south and maybe Judea was to the right. But anyway, they kind of turned up their noses to people who lived up towards Galilee, up to the north. So they didn't care for Galileans. They thought they were brusque and uncouth. And so they always kind of thought, Jesus kind of had this way of teaching because he had, in his 20s, he had gone into the temple courts and actually taught. And people would go, oh my God, he's a pretty smart guy. Let's make him the president of the university down here, even though he didn't go through the university. But Jesus had turned him down. So anyway, let's get back to the story. Jesus has been arrested. Judas led the temple guards along with a Roman army, because what happened was, a real quick, brief recap. Judas went to the house of John Mark, where Jesus had the Last Supper. And Judas took the temple guards there to arrest Jesus there. He didn't want to get him out there at Gethsemane, because Gethsemane had this big campground as well. And it was filled with, thousands of people who were there for the Passover that was going to happen 2 days later. Because all this is happening on a Thursday night and a very early Friday morning. I did make a mistake yesterday. I was thinking that his trial was occurring on the Sabbath day. But you'll soon see they can't have a trial on the Sabbath day of Passover. So Jesus is going to get a quickie trial. They got to do it really fast. In fact, there's supposed to be an extra day between one hearing and a second hearing, and they broke those rules. They broke those rules because they didn't want to have to do it on the Passover day, and they would know that if they did, that all of Jerusalem would have been there to see what's going on and how Jesus was going to be framed. So when he's arrested late at night, shortly after midnight, on Thursday night, early Friday morning, the Passover kind of starts at about noon time on the Friday before actual Passover. So they had to hurry up and get everything done before that noon came around. So it's just after midnight, and now entering the very early morning of Friday. And but by their rules, by their many, many rules, the Sanhedrin were not allowed to open a court until 3 a.m., which was the time of the first sacrifice. They make a sacrifice. I don't know, probably because those guys are hungry or something. I don't know. I don't know what all the rules are. And I don't hold anything against the Jews. And nobody should hold anything against a Jewish person because of what happened 2,000 years ago. I think the Jewish people of today understand Christians over time. They've understood that maybe they made a mistake because they look at Jesus as a prophet, but they don't look at him as a Messiah. We don't necessarily look at him as Messiah. We look at him as our God, our creator of our universe. Not all Christians do. They look at him as, as a man who ended up somehow, some way becoming also Christ. But I don't think many Christians truly understand that either. Jesus has even told us that 85% of Christians don't understand a whole lot. They really don't. They just faithfully go to church on Sundays and then go out for brunch, afterwards, and then go back to their real lives again. They're spiritual for that hour on Sunday morning, and then they go back to doing grievous things, and then they come back on the next Sunday and go, I'm faithful. Yes, I'm faithful. When are we getting out of here? Oh, I hope I don't fall asleep while the preacher speaks for 30 minutes. And I do this for an hour or more every day. And I'm not a pastor, and I'm not a minister. I'm not anything. All I am is a storyteller that was tasked 11 years ago to get the words of Christ out there through the channeling sessions that we would do with Marisa. And hopefully you guys pick up on that. And now let me back up for a second. If you're picking up on this, hopefully go back to Answers Heaven Speaks and tap on posts and go back and listen to yesterday, because Marisa's channeling was phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal what she had to say. It went about an hour and a half. She came in at about a half-hour mark and stayed with me as I was going through much of the story. And then she took over at about the hour mark. And by the hour and a half mark, she had some pretty astounding channeling. So go back. I mean, when she channels, we get lessons. We get lessons for 21st century, how to deal with our world the way it is right now, as if Jesus was right here today telling us what we need to do. Of course, what we need to do is do the will of the Father. But there's a lot of other things that go along with that. And that's learning to be happy. Being happy with your life. Not being happy that you killed your enemy. No. Don't be happy that you do evil. There are probably people who are out there that just love doing evil, and that makes them very happy. But no, happy in a good sense, in a very good sense. So anyway, if you missed yesterday, please find a way to get back there and see the lesson and the story yesterday on Peter denying Christ, and then Jesus getting arrested and then taken to Anas's house. Now, Anas is the father-in-law of Caiaphas, who is going to head up the court with the Sanhedrists, the Sanhedrin. He's the big oompa. And the reason why Jesus is taken to Anas first is because Anas used to be the chief priest, but maybe they have term limits or whatever, and he was no longer the chief priest, and his now son-in-law, Caiaphas, is the chief priest. But they can't go to court until at least 3 a.m. And it's now, it's kind of even before 1 a.m. on a Friday morning. So the guards take Jesus over to Anas's house, Annas, Anas. And Anas literally interrogates Jesus, interrogates him, asks him all these questions, and Jesus won't answer. He won't answer, and he's very stately. Jesus got his hands tied behind his back, and he's just not going to answer Anas's questions. That's all there is to it. And so Anas gets pissed off, and he goes over there and slaps Jesus. And then Anas leaves the room for a while, and the temple guards come and start slapping, even hit Jesus with a rod. Yet Jesus would continue to stand there very stately, putting up with everything. Jesus had already told Peter, don't cut off the ear, don't attack, don't smite those guards, because I've got 12 legions of angels that will do my bidding for me just as by me saying so. The angels would have wiped out all those guards and everything in a flash, just a snap of fingers. And then I realized yesterday, you know how many people are in a legion? 6,000. He had 12 legions watching what was going on. 12 legions. That's 72,000. 72,000 angels were watching that, plus a whole host of other universe personalities. We're all watching the creator of a universe being slapped by stupid, uncouth men who couldn't understand truth. So Jesus was over there at Anas's house, and John was allowed. His apostle John was allowed to be a one witness to be there during the trial. And that's why I read from John yesterday and how brief it is compared to what this real story is. And so we got to the point where Anas did his thing and was just mistreating Jesus. And now it has approached the 3 o'clock hour. In fact, I think it's closer to the 4 o'clock hour. And now it's time. And Anas leaves his stately home. You know, a rich guy. He lives off the money from the church, from the temple. You know, it reminds me so much of politicians today. They're just feeding off the trough of the American people. And you people who live in other countries, your government leaders are just feeding off of you and your incomes and your taxation. And they just live it high and mighty and whatever. And this was Anas. And it's also Caiaphas as well. And it's probably all the Sadducees. They steal from the temple money that they force the poor people to pay tax to. It's crazy. So the hour has come that Jesus now has to go have his trial, so-called trial, before Caiaphas and the Sanhedrin. So, oh no! I don't want this. I don't want the trial before Pilate. We're not getting into that. We may get to the point of getting him in with Pilate, but I doubt it, and we won't get into the trial before Pilate today. We may get an understanding of who Pilate was. He was a weenie. He was just a weenie. I mean, there was an emperor at that time. It wasn't Caesar, it was Tiberius. And Tiberius had left Pilate in Palestine as governor and the capital of Palestine, of course, was Jerusalem. So Pilate had many homes around Palestine, including one palatial home in Jerusalem. And Pilate was a weenie. He was easy pushover. He was a pushover. And that's why he got stuck. He got stuck in Palestine for 10 years. You know, his thing was to become a governor of maybe a country closer to Rome. You know, so anyway, the Jews knew how to get over on Pilate. So we'll see how that goes. But you don't find that in the Bible. You just don't. You don't get the backstory. There's so much more to the story that you faithful Christians, you go to church and you go, God, this doesn't seem to be right. It's just like Marisa said yesterday. She goes, Papa, I am so into this story now because I always thought of Jesus as just magically appearing when he was 30 years old and going out and having miracles and parables, and then boom, they killed him. I didn't know he had an earlier life. I didn't know what was going on during that time. And it's so, she understands Jesus. She feels closer to him. We get to feel closer to who Jesus is, not just somebody that's just jammed down our throat when we go to church. You must believe in Jesus. You must trust in Jesus. If you want to go to heaven, you have to believe in Jesus. And you go, oh my God, how do I do that? I don't even know this guy. Yeah, he did all these miracles because that book says so, but the book bounces around from one place to another, and it's very hard to understand. Very few people, maybe just theologians, people who go to Bible colleges, maybe they understand it more, but they become set in their ways because they only learn what's in that Reader's Digest portion. Yes, I love the Bible. It has meant so much to the world. Truly, Christianity is what has created freedom. Freedom. The United States was based on Christianity. Freedom. Other countries don't follow Jesus. They don't have freedom. They're being constantly told what to do, when to do it, and they can be imprisoned for no reason. I mean, it's just, ay, 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 ay. So I love the Bible, but again, I look at it as a short story. It's a short story. And I'm sitting here with the full novel. The full novel. So that's why it's taken me so long to go through the story of Jesus. And like Marisa said, it's going to make a whole lot of sense when we finish this story of Jesus to go back. Let's go right back to the beginning again, and let's bring it through 2023, right back to where we are now. But let's learn again, what did Jesus do when he was young? What went through his life? What did he do as a child? What does he do as a teenager? What did he do as a 20 to 30-year-old? He did a lot. Did a lot. And anybody that's been following this, and I know nobody, I mean, very few of you have followed this from the very beginning. Because I know how many people, by the ad and insights that Facebook gives me, I went from having 100 or 200 starting, and then it went to 500. I went, wow, there's 500, and then it went up to 700, and I went, wow, now it's 700, and then it went to 1,000. I went, wow. But it was going on and on. It's been going up and up and up and up and up and up. People are telling other people. I don't know if you can't share this because it really feels goofy to share these things and try to admit to other people that you're into Jesus, they think that you're a Bible thumper. You could do it by word of mouth. Just tell a friend, hey, you know what? I kind of like watching this guy. He's telling a pretty good story. It's a pretty good story. I mean, I think I'm getting to know who Jesus was better. And I think I understand a little bit more what my pastor or what my priest or whatever has been telling me that I never fully understood. Okay, so I'll blow VA for the whole hour and never get into the story. Let's get into this story. How are we doing anyway? Oh my gosh, how much am I wasted? Yeah, I'm fine with the hour. Oh no. Okay, I got to get through this. Let's get through this part of the trial before the Sanhedrin, the so-called Sanhedrin. I wish I could. Nah, I can't. I can see sunsets going right over. Right over there, through my window over there, but it should be nice, and it'll probably start getting a little dark in here. Got a mirror behind me, but it's very fuzzy. You can't see out through that mirror right there. But anyway, it's really nice. It makes the room much bigger. You walk in, and there's a big mirror there, and then so you walk into a room, and it looks like the whole other room is there. Anybody who has a house that has a big mirror on a wall, when you walk in, understands what that means. It's kind of fun. If you have a small apartment, put a wall mirror up on your wall as you come in, because it'll make your whole place seem bigger. It'll make you feel like you got a bigger place. Although mirrors can be expensive. Okay, so now he's before the court Sanhedrin. And it was about 3:30 this Friday morning. I've kind of explained the time frame. Can you imagine 3 o'clock in the morning, all this stuff going on? That's when we're asleep. Ay, ay, ay. So it's 3:30 this Friday morning, the Friday before the Passover, the Sabbath day of the Passover. So it's 3:30 this Friday morning when the chief priest Caiaphas called the Sanhedrin court of inquiry to order and asked that Jesus be brought before them for his formal trial. On 3 previous occasions, the Sanhedrin, by a large majority vote, had decreed the death of Jesus. Remember, if you go back in the story a ways, he issued a warrant for his arrest, remember? They had already decreed it'd be better to kill one man than to kill a whole nation. Use one man as an example. For you, don't you dare break our rules. Don't you dare break our rules. Don't you just do the will of the Father. That breaks our rules. We've got 600 rules, and you're supposed to follow our rules. So they had already decreed the death of Jesus and had decided that he was worthy of death on informal charges of law-breaking, blasphemy, and flouting the traditions of the fathers of Israel. Boy, you don't want to piss off the big guys, the elites, just like here in the United States. Don't you dare complain about the politicians or the president or anybody else, or you'll never be heard again. They'll cut off your freedom of speech. They'll say, wow, you're a Russian plant. or you're a racist. Always throwing terrible words at your face if you don't honor the power of politicians. And these guys are politicians to the max. This was not a regularly called meeting of the Sanhedrin. It was not held in the usual place, the chamber of the hewn stone in the temple. This was a special trial court of some 30 Sanhedrists. Now, that's more than they needed. They only needed 23. And was convened in the palace of the high priest. Now, John Zebedee was present with Jesus throughout this so-called trial. How these chief priests and scribes and Sadducees and some of the Pharisees flattered themselves that Jesus, a disturber of their position and the challenger of their authority, was now securely in their hands. And they were resolved that he should never live to escape their vengeful clutches. Ordinarily, the Jews, when trying a man on a capital charge, proceeded with great caution and provided every safeguard of fairness and the selection of witnesses and the entire conduct of the trial. But on this occasion, Caiaphas was more of a prosecutor than an unbiased judge. I mean, we've seen that since the election of 2020 in the United States. We've seen a lot of prosecutor judges. A lot of judges that didn't want to hear anything. They didn't want to hear any testimony whatsoever. They'd make up whatever rule they could so that they could get out of having to listen to any kind of evidence. By the way, there's something's coming up on January 6th, before SCOTUS, before the Supreme Court of the United States. For those of you here in the United States, those of you outside the United States might not understand, but there's a hearing coming up before the 9-panel judges of the Supreme Court, and it will require 4 of them to agree to keep that particular case moving forward, and there's probably a good chance it probably will. And it's called Brunson versus the USA. Actually, they're against all. It could literally throw out every congressman that had approved the 2020 election, including the president and the vice president. It's monumental what's coming up. So keep your eyes open for the Brunson case. It could be monumental, or we'll find out that our Supreme Court is just as corrupt as our government itself. But on this occasion, Caiaphas was more of a prosecutor than an unbiased judge. Jesus appeared before this court clothed in his usual garments and with his hands bound together behind his back. The entire court was startled and somewhat confused by his majestic appearance. Never had they gazed upon such a prisoner, nor witnessed such composure in a man on trial for his life. The Jewish law required that at least 2 witnesses must agree upon any point before a charge could be laid against the prisoner. But Judas, traitor, Judas could not be used as a witness against Jesus because the Jewish law specifically forbade the testimony of a traitor. So they even hated a traitor even if it was in their favor. More than a score of false witnesses. Score is what, 20? More than 20 false witnesses were on hand to testify against Jesus. But their testimony was so contradictory and so evidently trumped up that the Sanhedrin themselves were very much ashamed of the performance of these so-called false witnesses. Jesus stood there looking down benignly upon these perjurers, and his very countenance disconcerted the lying witnesses. In other words, they were freaking out. As they were lying, they could see Jesus looking at them. He knew that they were lying. So throughout all this false testimony, the master never said a word. He made no reply to their many false accusations. Jesus just stood there, hands behind his back, very stately. And Jesus knew he was going to die. He knew he was the creator of our universe. He knew that all those universe personalities that were up there watching and going on, that he had created them as well. And now here he was in the lowliest form in his universe of being a human being, being just totally mistreated. Totally mistreated. The first time any two of their witnesses approached even the semblance of an agreement was when two men testified that they had heard Jesus say in the course of one of his temple discourses that he would destroy this temple made with hands, and in 3 days make another temple without hands. Now you and I know what that means, but they didn't. They took it literally. They thought Jesus was going to come and he was going to, somehow Jesus by himself was going to tear down those great big stones. And then in 3 days he's going to, without even his hands, he was going to build it back up again. They didn't understand it was spiritual. It was spiritual. That was not exactly what Jesus had said, regardless of the fact that he pointed to his own body when he made the remark referred to. Although the high priest shouted at Jesus, saying, "Do you not answer any of these charges?" Jesus didn't open his mouth. He stood there in silence while all of these false witnesses gave their testimony. Hatred, fanaticism, and unscrupulous exaggerations so characterized the words of these perjurers that their testimony fell in its own entanglements. The very best refutation of their false accusations was the Master's calm and majestic silence. Shortly after the beginning of the testimony of the false witnesses, Annas arrived. You know, those kind of people who always like to show up late for the party, so everybody notices them. People who are, they get an invitation to be here at 8 o'clock, they show up at 8 o'clock. And most everybody shows up at 8 o'clock. Well, here comes the guy that comes strolling in at 9 o'clock and everybody notices him. Well, that's Annas. He comes in after everything started, so everybody notices Annas. So Annas arrived and then took his seat right next to Caiaphas. Annas now arose and argued that this threat of Jesus to destroy the temple was sufficient to warrant 3 charges against him. Remember, Annas had already done his thing with Jesus, interrogated him. Number 1, that he was a dangerous traducer of the people, that he taught them impossible things and otherwise deceived them. That's charge number 1. Number 2, that he was a fanatical revolutionist in that he advocated laying violent hands on the sacred temple. How else could he destroy it? Charge number 2. Charge number 3, that he taught magic. Inasmuch as he promised to build a new temple, and he'd do it without hands. These people are nuts. They're just nuts. Reminds me of the Select January 6th Committee, for those of you who know what that's all about in our Congress. Already had the full Sanhedrin agreed that Jesus was guilty of death-deserving transgressions of the Jewish laws, but they were now more concerned with developing charges regarding his conduct and teachings, which would justify Pilate, the governor of all of Palestine. Just happens to be in Jerusalem. And remember, when Judas went to Pilate to get some additional guards, he needed more guards because he knew that he was going to have to go up to Mount Olivet and up into Gethsemane, where there were going to be lots and lots of people up there. Maybe they might have rioted when they arrested Jesus. So he went to Pilate, and this is from yesterday's show. He went to Pilate to get 40 more soldiers. And Pilate wasn't, okay, I'll do it. But Pilate's wife said, no. Jesus, he's a good man. You don't need to send your soldiers out there. But Pilate didn't listen to his wife. He should have, but he didn't. And he gave over another 40 or 60 Roman soldiers. That's why I wonder, how did Peter get away with cutting off the chief steward's ear of Caiaphas? Caiaphas, the guy who's putting Jesus on trial right now. His chief steward supposedly had his ear cut off by by Peter, and nobody arrested him? With 60, 80 guards and troops there? Granted, yes, the first few of the troops of the guards, once they realized Jesus was who he was, they fell back. They fell back on their backs. But there were still lots more. There were lots more. So, that's the... how come it isn't in the same thing? How come Mark didn't tell it, just Matthew and Luke and John all say the same thing? We have a feeling Constantine kind of had something to do with that. He said, well, we don't need to leave it into Mark's because it's going to be told over in Luke's. It's like, what? But that's just my supposition. So where were we? Let's see. I'm going to backtrack here for a second. These sentences are so long. Already had the full Sanhedrin agreed that Jesus was guilty of death, deserving transgressions of the Jewish laws, but they were now more concerned with developing charges regarding his conduct and teachings, which would justify Pilate in pronouncing the death sentence upon their prisoner. They knew that they must secure the consent of the Roman governor before Jesus could legally be put to death. They needed Pilate's approval. They couldn't just go kill Jesus on their own. Then they were breaking Roman law, and they couldn't do that. And Annas was minded to proceed along the line of making it appear that Jesus was a dangerous teacher to be abroad among the people. In other words, they don't want to give him bail. They didn't have bail in those days where you put up a bond and you come back. That's a promise that you'll come back to trial. No. They were not about to release Jesus before Pilate did his thing. But Caiaphas could no longer endure the sight of the master standing there in perfect composure and unbroken silence. He thought he knew at least one way in which the prisoner might be induced to speak, and accordingly he rushed over to the side of Jesus and, shaking his accusing finger in the master's face, saying, I adjure you, in the name of the living God, that you tell us whether you are the deliverer, the Son of God. Jesus answered Caiaphas. He finally speaks. Jesus finally speaks. And he says, I am. Soon I go to the Father, and presently shall the Son of Man be clothed with power and once more reign over the hosts of heaven. Can you imagine? He hasn't been talking this whole time. And now Caiaphas sitting there wagging his finger in the face of the creator of our entire universe, billions of years ago, who now stands as a lowly man in judgment before other stupid men. Stupid human beings. And he says to Caiaphas, I am soon to go to the Father, and presently shall the Son of Man be clothed with power and once more reign over the hosts of heaven. Caiaphas probably when the high priest heard Jesus utter these words, he was just exceedingly angry, and he was tearing at his clothes, exclaiming, what further need have we of witnesses? Behold, now have you all heard this man's blasphemy. What do you now think should be done with this lawbreaker and blasphemer? And they all answered in unison, he is worthy of death. Kill him. Let him be crucified. Jesus manifested no interest in any question asked him when before Annas or the Sanhedrin, except the one question relative to his bestowal mission. When asked if he were the Son of God, he instantly and unequivocally answered in the affirmative. Yes, I am the Son of God. He's actually God. He's the God of this universe. He's just direct descendant of the eternal Son. The eternal Son makes up three of God. The eternal Son, the eternal Spirit, the Holy Spirit, and the eternal Father. They make up God, the three. And Michael was a direct descendant of the eternal Son. And he got his whole universe. He was the God of this universe. But he's still subservient to his Father. His Father. So he instantly and unequivocally answered in the affirmative. Yeah, that's me. Yep, I'm the Son of God. Annas desired that the trial proceed further and the charges of a definite nature regarding Jesus' relation to the Roman law and Roman institutions be formulated for subsequent presentation to Pilate. Okay, we're going to take it over to Pilate now. The counselors were anxious to carry these matters to a speedy termination, not only because it was the preparation day for the Passover, and no secular work should be done after 12 o'clock noon. You know, what time is it? 4 o'clock in the morning? 5 o'clock in the morning? They got to get this all done before noon. Otherwise, they got to wait. They got to wait until the Passover is over with. And they're not about to wait. And symbolically, you know, Jesus is crucified on the day of Passover. As far as I know, we'll get into that. If you remember, for those of you who don't remember, and many of you will go, oh, Joe, don't tell the story again. But very quickly, the reason for Passover was, even though it was actually, for whatever reason, it was practiced even before it actually happened, was when Moses put a curse on the Pharaoh in Egypt when they were in bondage. Because the Pharaoh wouldn't release the Jewish people to Moses, the slaves, and let them be free. And so Moses put a curse on the Pharaoh, his family, and all the people of Egypt. That night, the firstborn were going to die unless they let him go. Well, the Pharaoh didn't let him go. So all the Jews went and they put blood marks, X's, above their doors. And they were told to do that by Moses. And that night, the angel of death passed over the country. And every firstborn died, including the Pharaoh's firstborn son. But no Jews died. The angel of death did not take those who put the mark up on their door. So Passover is a big deal. It's a very big deal for the Jewish people. And now they're going to kill Jesus on a Passover? I mean, what? But they're just stupid human beings. We're all just stupid human beings. We all do stupid things. No secular work should be done after noon, but also because they feared Pilate might any time return to the Roman capital of Judea in Caesarea, since he was in Jerusalem only for the Passover celebration. So if they can't get to Pilate, they'd have to wait to either take Jesus up to Caesarea, closer up to, I'm not sure where Caesarea is. It's still got to be in Palestine somewhere. I don't think Jesus had ever visited Caesarea. I don't remember him ever going there. But Pilate was only there for the Passover, and then he was going to leave. So if they didn't take care of this deal with Jesus now, they were going to have to wait. And if they have to wait, then a consensus might grow. So they had to take care of it fast. Speedy trial. But Annas did not succeed in keeping control of the court. After Jesus had so unexpectedly answered Caiaphas, the high priest stepped forward and then hit him in the face, smote him in the face with his hand. Annas was truly shocked as the other members of the court, in passing out of the room, spit. They spit in Jesus' face. And many of them mockingly slapped him with the palms of their hands. Don't forget, that's effeminate to hit with your palms. That means you're inferior. If you're superior, you hit them with the back of the hand. But these mockingly little children of the devil himself were using the palms of their hands and slapping Jesus. Oh, you bad guy. Oh, you bad guy. And thus, in disorder and with such unheard of confusion, this first session of the Sanhedrin trial of Jesus ended at 4:30. How are we doing on time? Good. We still got a few minutes. I'm not sure we're going to get to the second one, but let's see. So 30, prejudiced and Tradition-blinded false judges with their false witnesses are presuming to sit in judgment on the righteous creator of a universe. They're sitting on judgment of the guy who made them. And these impassioned accusers are exasperated by the majestic silence and superb bearing of this God-man. His silence is terrible to endure, and his speech is fearlessly defiant. He is unmoved by their threats and undaunted by their assaults. Here, man sits in judgment on God. But even then, he loves them, and he would save them if he could. Then the hour of humiliation. The Jewish law required that in the matter of passing the death sentence, there should be 2 sessions. Two sessions of the court. Now, the second session was to be held on the day following the first, but that would have ended up being on Passover Day. They couldn't do that because they had laws. They weren't allowed to do business on the Sabbath, remember? So they're all freaked out. It was their own bad timing to arrest them when they did, but it was all God's plan. It was Jesus' plan too. He knew it all along. The second session was to be held on the day following the first, and the intervening time was to be spent in fasting and mourning by the members of the court. Yeah, right. They have to fast and mourn their decision that they're going to take the life of somebody. Yeah, right. Now they're hurrying through the process. But these men could not await the next day for the confirmation of their decision that Jesus must die. They waited only 1 hour. So much for mourning and fasting. In the meantime, Jesus was left in the audience chamber in the custody of the temple guards, who with the servants of the high priest amused themselves by heaping every sort of indignity upon the Son of Man, Jesus. They mocked him and they spit upon him and they cruelly buffeted him. They would strike him in the face with a rod and then say, "Prophesy to us, you the deliverer, who it was that struck you." And thus they went on for 1 full hour reviling and mistreating this unresisting man of Galilee. During this tragic hour of suffering and mock trials before the ignorant and unfeeling guards and servants, John waited in a lonely terror in an adjoining room. So John wasn't seeing what they were doing. He was really kind of freaking out. But he didn't get to see all the mistreatment that was going on. Jesus didn't want him to see it. John was going to be a very integral part of the kingdom of heaven after Jesus leaving. He did not want his apostles arrested and killed. And what was all the training for? So John waited in a lonely terror in an adjoining room, and when these abuses first started, Jesus indicated to John by a nod of his head that he should go retire. Go over there. The master well knew that if he permitted his apostle to remain in the room to witness these indignities, John's resentment would be so aroused as to produce such an outbreak of protesting indignation as would probably result in his death. Jesus didn't want that to happen. So John had to go over to another room. Throughout this awful hour, Jesus uttered no word. And to this gentle and sensitive soul of humankind, joined in personality relationships with the God of all the universe, there was no more bitter portion of his cup of humiliation than this terrible hour in the mercy of these ignorant and cruel guards and servants who had been stimulated to abuse him by the example of the members of this so-called Sanhedrin court. It looks like, I don't know if you can tell, a pretty nice sunset. Let me see if I can turn this around real quick. I think we're coming to the end anyway. I only got about 5 minutes. Let me take it. Maybe it'll brighten up a little bit out there and you can see. I'm only going to go for about another 5 minutes, and then we'll see if Marisa has a chance to come in. Now, Marisa does a show on Patreon, and you can get tickets to her show at discoverintuition.com. And if you can't pay, she has means of allowing you to come in as well. So sometimes on a Wednesday, it's pretty hard for her to get in here. and give us some of her channeling. But we'll see. We'll see in the next few minutes or not whether she's going to be able to make it. The human heart cannot possibly conceive of the shudder of indignation that's swept out over a vast universe of celestial intelligences witnessing this. There's at least 72,000 angels that are watching this. And then Jesus had created a whole universe of personalities, and they're all watching what's happening to their God, to their Creator, by stupid humans. The shudder of indignation that swept out over a vast universe of celestial intelligences witnessing the sight of their beloved sovereign, the head of their entire universe, submitting himself to the will of this ignorant and misguided creatures of the sin-darkened sphere of the unfortunate Urantia. Earth is blanketed by sin. What is this trait of the animal in man which leads him to want to insult? And this is the midwayers now making their own comments. What is this trait of the animal in man which leads him to want to insult and physically assault that which he cannot spiritually attain or intellectually understand or achieve? In the half-civilized, they call them half-civilized. In the half-civilized man, there still lurks an evil brutality, which seeks to vent itself upon those who are superior in wisdom and spiritual attainment. Witness the evil coarseness and the brutal ferocity of these supposedly civilized men as they derived a certain form of animal pleasure from the physical attack upon the unresisting Son of Man, Son of God, the man Jesus. As these insults and taunts and blows fell upon Jesus, he was undefending but not defenseless. Jesus was not vanquished, merely uncontending in the material sense. These are the moments of the Master's greatest victories in all his long and eventful career as maker and upholder and savior of a vast and far-flung universe. Look in the sky, folks. Look how vast the universe is. Oh my God, that's beautiful out there. We got to get there. Having lived to the full life of revealing God to man, Jesus is now engaged in making a new and unprecedented revelation of man to God. Jesus is now revealing to the world the final triumph over all the fears of creature personality isolation. The Son of Man has finally achieved the realization of identity as the Son of God, and Jesus does not hesitate to assert that he and the Father are one. And on the basis of the fact and truth of that supreme and supernal experience, he admonishes every kingdom believer to become one with him, even as he did, and he with his Father as one. We'll get into the second part of that trial. We've done our hour. Let me turn this around a little bit. We'll pick this up tomorrow when Caiaphas goes into his second little trial. And then they're going to go over to Pilate, find out from Pilate what's going on. Pilate's, he's a weenie. He's a pushover. Let me show you here. Oh, no, that's not it. My fingers are just so doggone big. It doesn't work. Okay. I don't know if you can see. Oh, it never really shows up really good. That is very bright orange out there. Believe me, folks, that is really bright orange. It's dark over on this side. But from my standpoint, that's very orange. Orange, 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 orange. But it just doesn't show up real good. Nah. Again, my little Christmas tree that we got, that we need to keep until January 6th or 12th or something like that. So anyway, we're done for today, except I do want to check and see if Marissa's going to make it. It's always a 50-50 on a Wednesday. Never quite sure whether Marissa can make it in here. And I want to thank everybody that's come in today. We may not get a lot of people who watch us live. The other day we had a lot. We had a lot of people on live. God, we had like 5,000 people. We'd have like 7 people watching live. We end up having 5,000 people that watch the show. Yesterday, we just didn't go out very far, and we got something like 2,000, 2,100, something like that. But I appreciate that, and God certainly appreciates it as well. Hey, there's a red light. Let's see if Marisa can make it on. Here we go. Marisa, can you make it? Approve. Hi, Reese. Hi, Anna. Thanks for coming in. Hi, Diane. Diane, all the way from Australia. I wonder what time's going over there. Marisa, unable to add guest. You must have the wrong phone again, because I can't get you in. Let me try it again. Yep. Here, I'll try it again. Approve. Ask Marisa to join. Unable to add guest. I don't know what it is about that phone, Marisa. I just can't seem to get you on. You're coming in halfway, and then my phone won't let you come in. Hang in there, folks. Let's see if we can get Marisa in. It'd be such a shame if she can't come in. I'd love to hear Jesus give us some comment about having to go on trial. I'd love to get his words, our 21st century words from Jesus. Okay, Marisa, I'm going to approve again. Wow, it jumped from up yesterday. You had like 5,800. Now it's 6,300 followers. Wow, you get them fast. It says unable to add guests. You're going to have to try a different phone, Marisa. That one just doesn't work. It doesn't work. And you watch, your other one's probably dead. Try another one. Hang in there, folks. You definitely want to hear what Marisa has to say if she can get in here. I've tried 3 times now, and it will not allow me to bring her in. So let me see if I can do this again. Sticking my big nose. No, it won't even let me say add. Nope. I don't know what it is. Oh, that'd be so sad, because I'd love to hear what Jesus has to say today. I mean, can you imagine? Marisa gets to talk to Jesus. We all talk to Jesus, but Jesus talks back to Marisa. Yeah. While they're coming in, let's see if this looks even more orange to you guys. Let me turn this around again. Turn around. Nope, that isn't going to work. Feature links. No, there we go. You can see it's kind of blue and orange there, but God, it doesn't show up at all the way I see it. The ocean's a deep, dark blue. The sky is very orange. It's really quite beautiful. Very, very beautiful. You can see my high roof up there. And yeah, we got palm frond roof. We're definitely down here in the tropics. And yeah, at about this time of the day or night, out come the little bugs, the little mosquitoes and hennies come out. They're not real bad, but the birds. This is when the birds come out. The birds come out and eat them all. They just fly around. They just fly around with their mouths open, just sucking up like vacuum cleaners, just sucking up all the bugs in the air. That's how God works. The birds don't worry about their next meal. They just wait till sundown and just come out. And all the little bugs come out at sundown. And then here come the birds, right on by. So we always have a lot of birds flying around at sundown. Good. I got a little red mark. Let's see if it works this time. If it doesn't work this time, Marisa, I'm afraid we ain't going to make it today. Ask Marisa Morris to join a live broadcast. Send invite. Hey, there it goes. Hey, yay. I think we're going to get Marisa in here. Yay, I think it's going to happen. Let's see. She may only be able to come in on audio and not on video.
Hi.
There you are. Are you there video or
Oh man,
no?
I don't know what it is about this phone. It doesn't have I guess it doesn't have video permissions or something like that. I have no
Yeah, I don't
idea.
know. You got this happened before, and then you would switch a phone, and it would end up working. So
You know what?
can you go over to your other phone?
Let me see. Hold on.
Yeah,
I'm
you'll have
literally
to.
hiding out in my car now because hold on. Yeah, I have another phone. Hold on, let me see. Let me try this.
Yeah. This one doesn't work. So you'll have to get off first, and then come back in with the other phone. Hang
Well, I
in there,
don't really
folks.
know if there's a lot to channel about because well.
Okay, the only thing I was hoping was to hear Jesus's thoughts on when he went through that first trial with Caiaphas and what his thoughts were. But if we can't get in, we can't get in.
No, they're here. All the guides are here. It's not. Let me see.
That's okay. Just do it. Just do the audio. You don't have to go on camera.
Okay. Yeah, I don't want to deal with the camera right now. Okay, so let's see. Jesus is here. Peter's here. All of them are here.
I don't have any questions to ask. Got no questions. I don't like to ask the questions anymore. That's something that we do when we're in session, just you and I,
Yeah.
and we're taping it and whatever. And then half the time I cut off Jesus when he's telling us something really important, and then I come up with something really inane and change the subject. Um, so many times I do that.
Yeah, and
So
they
I'd
get
rather not ask any
like the
questions. I would only rather hear if they're here, if they have anything to say, just let them say whatever they want to say.
okay.
No pressure on you, Marissa, at all.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, Jeff is now out here deciding that he needs to get their backpacks out of the car, and okay, everyone decided they need to be around me. I'm at the house, so it's like the second it's time for me to go on, it's like everybody was like, "But why not hold the dog?" And I'm blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Oh my gosh, you guys!" They were completely like silent the whole time we were reading and we were listening to the show, and then as soon as it was my turn, everyone went crazy. But anyway,
That's
so
kids. That's kids.
it's the second you take your attention or awareness away from kids, they have to find a way, or your husband, they have to find a way to get your attention back. So anyways, I'm here with Lucky Doodad. Oh, anyways, Lucky went to the doctor today, and he's only gonna have his cast on for 1 more week, they think.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so they haven't done x-rays, so they can't tell whether it's healed back or whatever, but he's doing good. He's an awesome dog. And
Yeah,
he
I stuck Poppy up in the camera because Poppy had come up and he looks so much like Lucky, except he has shorter ears.
uh,
And he's a smaller dog, but he looks like Lucky. You know, Poppy
Poppy.
looks like Poppy.
Aw,
Papi, Poppy, Poppy,
cute.
Poppy. Or Poppy. You know, it just depends the way you want to look at it. But we always think of it as like Poppy, like he was going to be a father
I
someday.
feel like all the dogs are named after you in some way. Poppy or a Papa, and then there's Joey, Joe.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, that's right.
That's how much kids love their dads. They name everything after them.
Yeah.
I was gonna try and log in from my other phone, but there's no point. That they're basically saying that. Hold on, let me see. Jesus says, "Please do not allow yourselves to become sad or feel sorry for the Son of Man. For the Son of Man enters into and unto this world every 26,842 years to bring unto each consciousness that lies within human beings a new frequency or a new expectation of what they can be and what they cannot be. For at this time on this earth, the Christ consciousness entered into and unto this earth 8 years ago. And 8 years ago, human beings began to create lives using their God consciousness or their Christ consciousness or their ability to create consciousness and their ability to create life. For every human being sees life through different eyes. Even the same human being can see life through the same eyes differently depending on what mood they are in. Your emotions dictate everything. So do not allow yourself to feel sorry for or become saddened by and feel as if you must feel sad. For yes, you will feel sad hearing a story, but understand and know that everything is orchestrated in God's way, in God's time, in God's faith, in God's understanding of how God wants things to be. And there is a cyclical nature to Urantia or to Earth. And Earth that lies within each and every single one of us sometimes needs to be reset. And that's by bringing unto the earth an incarnation of that which is the Heavenly Father, the host, the one that created this creation in the first place, but then cut off the ability to continue to create and gave the ability to create to those who are born onto the planet. So the Father creates, and then lets go. And it is up to the beings that live upon these spheres that the Father, quote unquote, Father or Master creates, that it is up to the beings that are incarnate, or the beings that live upon these spheres that God creates, to inherently understand who they are and begin to redirect their eyes back towards the one that created the space in which they live in, and that is themselves, or that is the Father, because anything the Father creates is the Father, and anything that the Father thinks up is a creation, and these creations are all the Father. So understand and know that Christ is the Christed Son, or the Christed being. It's the incarnate, it's the physical God, so to speak. So many say the Son, but others may just say it is a creation of God for God to step into. It is if you were to go into a virtual reality and you wanted to create a perfect avatar to go live in, and you create this avatar to be like you and look like you and see like you, so that you could then go and step into this avatar and live in it and experience life through it. This is the way that it was with the Father and Christ. So Christ was this perfect avatar, so to speak. This perfect avatar, so to speak, is that which Yeshua ben Joseph then connected with at age 14 and was guided by and led by. And each of you can be guided by and led by this perfect avatar as well. It's not just Yeshua ben Joseph. It's not just Jesus, but Jesus is the one that's been able to attain this. So knowing and understanding that there is this perfect avatar, this perfect creation waiting for you to connect with, that will allow you to replace your old brain, replace your old egoic, fearful thoughts with those of faith and gratitude and humility, and not wanting to hurt another, but not necessarily feeling sorry for other people either, because feeling sorry for someone is pity. And this is the ego's version of compassion. And compassion is seeing in others things you've experienced before and going, oh, wow, I've been through that too. I get it. Not, oh, you poor little thing, I feel sorry for you. That is pity. So this world is full of pity. This world lacks humility. And in bringing this story through to human beings, we do not want human beings to say, oh man, those people killed the creator. Oh man, they're horrible. Or we have pity on them. Or we want everyone to just know and understand that they have the ability to connect with the all that is, and understand how we are created, and understand what we were created for. And that was to just enjoy creation, not remembering that we are the ones that created it. If you were to create a perfect game, a perfect golf course, and if you were to know every single blade of grass and remember that, you go, oh, there's a sand trap coming up, and the wind is going to start blowing at this time, and it's going to whisk my ball off and take it over into the water. You wouldn't like that, because then you would just know, and you don't want to know. So you've masked yourselves. All of you have masked yourselves from remembering that you're the one that created your life, and ultimately you're all the Father, masking yourself so that you don't remember that you're the Father, so that you don't remember that you're Christ. And as you can remember this, your life will become much more fruitful. You will feel nourished, you will feel loved, and you'll be able to love and nourish those around you that you care to love and nourish. We bless each and every one of you. We will not speak directly on the proceedings that happen in this story until after the story is over. They're saying in 2 days. After that's when they're going to come in and talk about certain things. But he doesn't want to take from the story.
Oh, great. Okay.
And that's it.
Wow. Thank you, Jesus.
Yeah, that was
Thank
him the
you.
whole
Thank you
time.
for coming.
He's saying,
Thank you, sir.
don't feel sorry for me, because then if you feel sorry and sad, then you're going to drop into a lower vibration, and then you're going to get mad. Because people, when they get sad, they get mad. So it's much easier to
Yeah.
be mad than it is to be sad. And Jesus always says, anger is the most empowering feeling out of all feelings and emotions, because when you're angry, you're right. Everyone else is wrong, and you're like angry because you're right and they're wrong. So it's a very empowering feeling. So many people will choose anger and like vengeance over sadness and feeling bad. So he's saying, don't feel sad and bad. Just know and understand that he went through what he went through, so that we as human beings that are like, duh, could be like, oh, whoa, that's not possible for someone to be born to a virgin, and for someone to die and resurrect. That's not possible. so he's saying that many beings have had to go through that process that he went through to prove to the people of their sphere that they created that there is a supernatural that there's a that their world is supernatural, and he wants people to realize that it's supernatural. And we believe that Moses put curses on people in Passover, but then we don't believe that Jesus can bless people. So it's that was me. That was me / Peter. Peter's going, yeah, everyone can believe that Moses put a curse, but they can't believe that Jesus, did this or that.
That's so true. That's
People
very
want to believe
true.
the bad, but not the good, and they don't want to believe that someone could actually have done good. And yeah, Peter's going, yep, it's just like the people when they do something good, they go, oh, look what I did, and then when something bad happens, they go, look what God did to me. And
That's true.
instead
That's
of
true.
yeah, that's what God, Peter's saying, that everyone wants to take credit for things, and sometimes people will go, oh, all with the blessings of God, but Peter goes, they really think it's them.
I can believe it. I
He
love
says that's
Peter.
false humility. People going like, oh yeah, because God did this for me, but really they're going, well, it's because my connection with God is so great. And as he's pounding on his chest
Well, I'm
like
glad
a
Peter
monkey.
came in because we really scavenged Peter, savaged, I
Yeah.
guess, Peter yesterday for what he did. But you know what? A lot of people in the Christian faith all make fun of Peter, and I think that Peter was
But it
astounding,
wasn't
just
Peter
an
who cut the
astounding
ear. It was
person.
Mark. Remember, Peter said it was Mark who cut, or someone said it was Mark who cut the ear, I think.
Well, a couple of them said someone did it,
Yeah.
but John said Peter did it. But my
Rosemary
always,
goes, of course
you,
he did.
it really doesn't matter. It really doesn't
I know.
matter, because the story is going to not be perfect in either of these books. There's going to be some question in everything, but
And Jesus
because it's
says
all by
the
man.
only thing is just keeping it. Jesus says the biggest thing is keeping people's attention and knowing that their energy is coming through when you're reading it or reading the Bible, whatever you're reading about him, he's going to bring that information, energy through, and it's going to transform and change people, because the piece of themselves inside of themselves that is Christ is going to be activated, and it's going to wake up. And as long as that's woken up, even if it's just for a second or two a day, it's going to start
Wow.
to transform their body and change them. It's going to like
Good.
metamorphosize them. So even if they're just listening to the story for a few minutes and that
Uh-huh.
Christ energy is running through, it's like playing the note A, on a tuning fork, and then all the A's in the room will start going, they'll start vibrating, because it's like the longer that somebody can listen while the Christ consciousness is flowing through you or me or whoever is talking about stuff like this, the more it's going to wake up inside of them, and the more their brain will go, oh, I'm not the one in charge. It's my consciousness that's in charge. And then the
Mm-hmm.
brain will start to just be the functioning part of the body that, functions all of our body, but it'll know that it's not us, and that
Uh-huh.
we truly are souls living we're God consciousness living as souls, and the souls are living as humans. So it's
Yeah.
like a threefold thing. So yeah, Jesus says it's beautiful, and the story, it does matter, but it doesn't matter. And he says, and if everything was exactly the same, nobody would believe it. That's what Peter just said.
Oh, is
Peter
that
said, if
right?
everything was exactly the same, then nobody would believe it, because they'd go, hey, it's all the same. And why is it all the
Yeah.
same? They're just tricking us. So Peter says there's almost like a little bit of mystery to when something's a little bit off or something's a little bit different, then people go,
Uh-huh.
let's look into this.
Yeah.
And then and then it makes them search more. So Peter says human beings are funny like that. They like things to be contradictory, and when they are that way, it keeps their attention. But everything's exactly the same, they get bored.
Oh, okay. That makes
That's
sense.
true. That's so true, though.
Yeah, it
I
is
never thought about that.
true.
That's super
Yeah, it
true.
is true. Well, they're a heck of a lot smarter than we are, that's for sure.
Yeah. Peter goes, well, I am. And Jesus says, hey.
That's so funny.
They're
Well,
always
that
they're always battling. I listened to the channeling yesterday, and I thought it was so funny that Jesus thinks that Peter, all the bad things that Jesus ever wants to do is what Peter did. Or that he's like his shadow or something like that.
right.
Or like all the things that if Jesus was to be. I listened to wasn't that yesterday where Jesus said he loves Peter the most because Peter said and did all the things that he would have done if he was tempted by sin.
Yeah, that's right. He did say that, kind of in a laughing way.
Yeah.
That was really cool. That was a knock on Peter, of course.
But Peter was like, but Peter was all proud because he was like, I told you that I was Jesus' favorite.
That's right. That's fantastic.
He says,
Well,
I'm the one that Jesus loves the most, is what he said.
yeah, and John thinks that in the Bible, John calls him the one that Jesus loved.
Oh,
He calls
really?
himself in the third person. John calls himself in the third person the one that
Oh,
Jesus loved. And
so all of
yeah,
us.
so John's a little egotistical too.
Yeah, Rosemary
So
agrees.
and I'm sure Rosemary would have something to say
And
about
she's
that.
scoffing. Oh, John. I think she's
But
in love
that's
with
great.
John personally.
Probably, it's like Tawny. Tawny's at that age 8 right now, and boys pick on her.
Oh, because they like
And
her.
I said, Tawny, the reason they're picking on you is because they like you, but they don't want to look terrible in front of their
Yeah.
friends. So they're real cool by picking on you and pulling on your hair or pulling on your skirt
Yeah.
or stealing your pencil. It's because they actually like you.
Yeah.
And so she doesn't understand that. So it's so strange. I mean, I'm sure Madison's going to be facing it real
Well,
soon too.
she already did. She
So
came home saying, she goes, Mommy, Brandon doesn't believe in Jesus. He celebrates Hanukkah, and he says that I believe in Jesus, and that's stupid. And I'm
oh
like,
my
oh,
gosh, oh
great.
my
So
gosh,
so
she's got a Jewish friend.
yeah.
Oh my gosh,
No, but
yes,
and supposedly this Jewish friend had a pool party last night. I was like, no kid that's 7 years old or 6 years old is gonna have a pool party at 7:30 at night, Madison. I don't care how
yeah.
many invitations he made out yesterday and didn't give you one. There is no pool party. I will call all the kids that you say he invited, and I'll call their
Uh-huh.
parents and see if they're going to a pool party in Vegas when it's 32 degrees out at
Oh,
7:30 at night on a school night.
oh,
And
no
he was just
way.
like, oh, well, you're not invited to my pool party. I was like, oh, this kid's got a crush on Madison.
Yeah, yeah, he does.
And
He
he's probably
most
got
definitely does.
boastful parents that are like, oh, we probably have pool parties. And, because he's like, I'm having a pool party tonight at 7:30. And Madison was like, at 7. She was like, Mommy, I'm going to miss the party. I'm like, Madison, there's not really a party. And she was like, so adamant that there
No
was.
way. People would turn into icicles
I
going into the
know.
pools in the
And on the first
wintertime.
night of school back, no, the people aren't, no parents are going to have the first night of school back, have a pool party at 7:30 at night for a bunch of
Yeah.
6-year-olds. Nope. But anyways, yeah.
Tawny didn't go back to school until Monday, so she's still in vacation mode. But
Oh, cool.
anyway, listen, Marissa, I'm glad you came in
Yeah,
tonight.
me
I know
too.
you have a show to do,
I do.
and this was a fabulous lesson. I love hearing from Jesus tonight.
Me too.
So hopefully you'll make it back
I will
again tomorrow. And so
be here
let's go ahead
tomorrow.
and wrap
Yep.
it up for
I was telling her,
today.
if anybody wants to come to meditation tonight, it's starting in about an hour and a half at 7 o'clock. I'm just going to do a quick meditation and lead everybody in through their New Year's resolutions and remove any blocks that everyone has to New Year's resolutions. I'm sure everyone's already broken their New Year's resolutions by now, so we'll do a renewal of New Year's resolutions, and then just kind of realign with our soul and our spirit and all that, and unconsciously I'll do unconscious reprogramming and remove all the blocks you have to losing that weight or keeping that relationship or whatever. So anyways, go to www.discoverintuition.com and you can get tickets there. And if you can't afford them, let us know. We'll give you a code to get in. Don't let money dictate you not coming to class, because you're more than welcome to come regardless of whether you have money or not. So anyways, okay, I said my piece.
Good.
Love you,
Okay,
Papa.
Marissa, I love you too. Have yourself a good night, and
Okay.
hopefully tomorrow we'll be back together
Yep,
again.
we will be. Okay, love you. Good night.
Love
Tell
you too.
Tanya and Drew I love him too. Okay, bye.
I will.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks, my head goes whoosh, whoosh. When she comes off, I go from a real long skinny head down to the little fat head again. So anyway, thank you so much for coming in today. Joe Morris with Answers Heaven Speaks. Our lighting's a little bit different today. I don't have right coloring, but that's okay. And thanks to all of you people who are on here. I think I mentioned Gletha was in here also. I'm always afraid to scroll through here. Anna, I think I mentioned hi, Anna. Rachel is in there. Marissa's Reese. Thanks, Reese. Vero, Guillemard, is that right? Wonder where you're from. Also, Michelle. Thank you, Michelle Curtis. Sheila Lowe. Marissa, of course, in there. Lisa Heine. Thanks, Lisa. Diane Heasley. Oh my gosh, a lot of people. Paulina Peters. Thank you. Anna Carroll again. Anyway, so thank you, folks, for coming in. And thank you for all of you who have come on later that didn't come on live. We always appreciate you being on live. You get it firsthand. But you know what? if you go back and listen to this again, it's going to mean a whole lot more. You don't have to listen to my story, but listen to Marissa's channeling, because that's coming right from our Creator. That's coming right from Jesus himself. And he had something to say. He said, "Don't think of me. Don't be sad. Don't be sad." Isn't that the way it is in church all the time? You go to church and everybody's like so sad because Jesus was crucified, and oh my God, it's so sad. Jesus says, "Don't be sad. Don't be sad. It was meant to be." It's one of those things. And he comes around every 26,800 years anyway, and tries to uplift whatever civilization is on the earth at that time. The earth has been around a long time, folks. There's been a lot of civilizations. Not just one civilization made pyramids. So anyway, that's it for today, for a Wednesday. And I hope everybody has a great night tonight. And God be willing, we'll be back here again tomorrow. We're just going to keep the story going. We've only gone through the first phase of his trial with Caiaphas, and we're going to learn a little bit more about Pilate too. Pilate's he's a pushover. In fact, I'll tell you a little bit. We know that Judas ends up committing suicide, and we'll get to that in the story. But you know what? Pilate commits suicide too. He's such a weenie that he ended up taking his own life too. So anyway, not to bust anybody's bubble and read the last page of the story, because we're still a long way from the last page of the story. And so hang in there. It's very, very, very interesting. Very interesting. So again, Joe Morris, Answers Heaven Speaks. Thanks again, everybody, for being here. Have a great Wednesday night. And God willing, we'll all be back here again tomorrow. So take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.